we've talked a lot. We've watched videos from Learn 360 about Abe Lincoln growing up, and who else? George Washington growing up in the wars and becoming president, and all the good things they have done for our country. What else did we read about? Was this a true story?
Yes.
What else did we read?
George Washington and the General.
Was this a true story?
Yes.
And we just said that the author used cartoons and pictures because it kind of makes it more fun to read. Well, you guys are going to use, we've done this many times. What is this guy called?
Venn diagram.
It's a Venn diagram. You know this. We use this for comparing and contrasting. And like it says here, how were Abe Lincoln and George Washington alike and different? Well, on one side of your Venn diagram, you are going to put, you can write the whole word if you want to, George Washington. I will do this one for you. On the other side, you're going to write what?
Abraham Lincoln.
Abe, you can abbreviate, Abe Lincoln. Okay? What goes right here?
Both.
Yes. That means they both did it, or they both liked it, or they both had it. Very good. All right. Well, I have made some little pictures for you. With your partner, you're going to cut them out. Well, I've done 2 pictures. I'm sorry, I've done 2 pictures. The rest of the things you have to read. And that's why you are going to be with your reading partner that I have. Yes. Okay? And if you don't know a word, maybe your partner does. Help each other. Okay? You're going to cut out each little thing. Well, who wore this kind of hat?
Abraham Lincoln.
Who wore a tricorner, 3-corner hat? George Washington. All right, and we learned about why, because it helped keep the rain out of their faces. All right, well, you've got many little things to read. Had many dogs.
Both. George Washington.
Had 1 dog.
Abraham Lincoln.
Abraham Lincoln had 1 dog. Who had many dogs? George Washington. Remember, we read that over the course of his life, he had over 36 dogs. I bet he had more than that. All right, put that over there. All right, what about this one? Loved dogs.
Both.
They both did. Remember our story yesterday about Fido?
Yeah, I do.
Abe loved Fido. Remember, he even cried when he had to leave him. Okay. All right, so do you see what you're doing?
Yeah.
You should know the answers to all of these. We've talked about all of these. On the back page, you have 2 circles. You can come up with your own facts and put them on the Venn diagram. You have 2 circles, but if you want to write something else, if you think of 3 things and we're not finished yet, write it down, cut it out, and glue it up there. If you think of something else, okay? Do the things that I have created first, and then you can create your own. Talk with your partner. Talk about, okay, what is not on the Venn diagram that we learned about, okay? You're going to do that with a partner. All right, so you each need your glue stick, you each need your scissors and your pencil. You need your pencil because you need to write George Washington, Abe Lincoln, or both, okay? And here are the words. There's Abe Lincoln. What are these words?
George Washington.
Absolutely. All right. You are with your partner, so all you need 1 set of the cards and a Venn diagram. All right, so when I call you, that's short for mountain. Yes. Oh, look there. You, Katie.
Yeah.
Where one of them, I think it was Sweet Lips, came and stole the ham right off the table. Remember they bought that big car out in Virginia.
George Washington. Is that right?
Washington have a memorial in Washington, D.C.? Okay, what does it look like?
Yeah.
Okay, what about Abe Lincoln? Does he have a memorial in D.C.? No? What's that on the back of the pen? Where's that place where Martin Luther King gave his famous speech? So, who would be memorial in Washington, D.C.? Both. Good job.
It's Mario. This is mine. No, it's not.
Which one has a memorial in Washington, D.C.? Remember, a memorial is something that we have to remember somebody.
Oh, good.
Why don't you help her cut? She's doing all the cutting.
But I don't have it.
Yes, you're on your own.
But I don't have it. Is it for you? What's the log cabin?
Katie, you have listened. I can tell.
I did not know.
Here, you can pay attention to her. She knows her president.
I think it's both. It's Abraham Lincoln.
Who? Which one?
Abraham Lincoln.
Lived in the log cabin? Yes. First of all, remember a memorial is something we have. So it's a structure, it's something we build to remember somebody. So who has a memorial in Washington, D.C.? Abraham Lincoln has one, yes. He's got one because that's where Martin Luther King gave his famous speech. It's on the back of the penny. What about George Washington? Does he have a memorial?
Yes.
Okay, well think about it. The city's named after him, Washington, D.C. And remember that big, tall, pointy thing? That's the Washington Memorial. So both of them have a memorial. All right, the other one. A lot of you are asking me about lived in Mount Vernon. Remember that's the big farm, the big mansion in the farm where he had horses and dogs and who lived there?
George.
That was George Washington. Remember, where did Abraham Lincoln live when he was little? Where did he live? He lived in Illinois in the log cabin. Okay, did he ever get to live there?
No.
No. So when it says lived in the White House, who is that?
Lincoln.
Yes, because George Washington never got to live in the White House. But he's the one that had it built. He said, hey, we should have a special place for the president to live. That's all one phrase, huh? That's okay. That's fine. He's the 16th president. Don't worry about it. That's fine. Okay, here's your two facts. Make up your own two facts. Who's this? Oh, you gotta do this one. His birthday is February 12th. Birthday February 22nd. Why don't you help her?
What are you doing? Dad, what are you doing?
Katie, who has the same birthday as Laura? Remember, we talked about that last week.
Tell her first.
Abraham Lincoln, February 12th. What does it say? Abe has a big what?
Do I have to cut it out?
No.
What does it say? George was the... We already did that one. We have it right there. First president of the United States.
Yes, I do.
Think about something they liked to do when they were kids. Yes, I love that one, Katie. That's awesome.
That was about to cut it out like this.
It's a mistake. They were working together. I like the
You gotta erase that and do something else.
See, I told you the best you can.
I don't care about
It's a really hard cover.
I got a little bit sore for me, so I have to use that big piece.
I think we do need to revamp the first grade system.
I got the humongous suckers that run on fuse. Yeah.
He actually wrote George Washington on the little post-it well, he don't have on there, and he put George Washington.
Okay, you can fix it. You can fix it.
She said a
Not a biggie. Alright.
Come in there.
There you go. Alright, one more. Let's get this one out. Alright guys, I'm going to say 4 more minutes. So we need to get it trucking. 4 more minutes.
Mom, I got the dinner snack.
No, until we're finished. We just had lunch. Alright, let's see. Alright, we have Dylan and Lawrence. Alright, I can see they put George Washington over here and they put Abe Lincoln over here. Let's look at the both. Well, we know they both love dogs. Memorial in Washington, D.C. That was kind of a tricky one. They both have one, okay? Because George Washington was so important because he was our first president. They named the city after him. And the big, it's like a pool with water and that big, tall memorial with the little point on the top, that's the Washington Memorial. And we've talked about Abraham Lincoln's memorial many times because it's on the back of the penny and someone gave a very famous speech there. We celebrated him back in January.
Martin Luther King.
Yes, Martin Luther King. Very good. All right, so they both did that. Let's see. Abe Lincoln lived in the White House. Okay, George Washington had it built, but he never got to live there. But he was the one that came up with the idea that said, hey, we should have a special place for the president to live. And we've had it ever since, but they didn't complete it in time for him to live there. But all the presidents after him have lived there. What?
How did he like this? Like, did he just give like a big speech somewhere, or did he just say when president was invented or something?
I think he just kind of talked to the people around him and said, hey, I think we should have a special place. And then they all got together and had it built. All right, well, and we know George Washington had many dogs. He loved his dogs and gave them funny names. And we know that Abe Lincoln only had one. He had the one dog, Fido, that they didn't take with him. Remember, they left him in Springfield, Illinois. All right, and of course, that's George Washington's hat. That is Abraham Lincoln's hat. Who lived in Mount Vernon? George Washington. He was the first president and, lived in a log cabin. Wait a minute. Who lived in the log cabin and read by the firelight?
Abraham Lincoln.
Abraham Lincoln. That one needs to go over here, but that's okay. Who freed the slaves? Abraham Lincoln. You guys did really well. Oh, let's look what they added. The president
Said, lied.
the president said the driver, something the general. Okay, because he was a general. George Washington was a general in the army before he was president. Very good. And he lived on a farm. He did. Remember, he had lots of chores. And he was a farmer. Remember from our Scholastic News. All right, you guys did really well. If you could say, here's just one final question. Which one was your favorite? Like if I'm going to think, which one was my favorite president? George Washington or Abraham Lincoln? Boy, you know how much I love animals. Who would you think I would pick?
George Washington.
George Washington. But I really, really like to read. And Abraham Lincoln, he loved to read. And he was honest and he was a really good person. So I really like that too. Oh, it's so hard to pick. I think I would have to pick
Washington.
I'm torn. Raise your hand if George Washington's your favorite. Raise your hand if Abe Lincoln's your favorite. Who's your favorite? I did both.
I did both.
I can't decide. We teach it. We do a lot of partner group, teamwork. We do that. They were in their reading groups with their reading partner because some are low level, some are higher level. That way they could read and still talk about things in order to answer the questions. We do a lot with Venn diagram, a big thing, and especially Marzano. They talk a lot about comparing and contrasting, how students learn best, and comparing and contrasting is a big area there, especially for this age group. So we do a lot with Venn diagram. Why did I teach it?
What worked about the lesson?
What worked about the lesson? I think this has been a really hard year, so I think it went really well. I do like how they work together. There's not a lot of arguing. I think by this point of the year they're really getting along. And I think it was, they really enjoyed the fun facts about things, like about, George had 36 dogs, and, we just read a story about Lincoln's dog Fido, and I had a book about all the presidents and their dogs. So they really like the fun facts and things like that. And then you have to kind of throw in those other facts, to make sure you're getting the point across and meeting the objective. So.
Great. And do you have any advice for teachers?
Advice for future teachers. Be flexible. Flexibility. Just like today, everything is thrown at you. You have kids coming and going. You teach everybody. And the gamut is very wide. So flexibility, make it fun. Make it fun for you too. Keep it fun for you, or you'll go crazy. And just enjoy it. And just keep the students at the front of your mind at all times and in your heart, because that's what matters.